In classical mythology, we have this thing we sometimes call the hero pattern, where like certain events tend to repeat in a hero's life. Like they leave home to go on a journey, they do some incredible task, and then they like retire to become a king. Working on this same theory, but for magic cards, where it's spoiled, everyone thinks it's gonna like break every single format. It sees no play, and then it retires to see play on my channel in oddball deck lists. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video, and today we are going to be playing with like a very heavy mono white Stax prison deck list. And Voidmere is actually one of the primary reasons that we're playing this deck, believe it or not. Now, this is a card that people were so excited about when it first got spoiled. You know, it was going to really break formats. It was going to stop a lot of things in Vintage that were powered off of Mishra's workshop. It was going to stop Force of Wills. And then this card saw not zero play, but very close to zero play. And it wasn't the tournament all-star that some people on Reddit expected. Now, if we think about the legacy metagame, free spells have come back in a really big way. Oddly enough, black is probably one of the best colors in Legacy now, despite being kind of an underpowered color in Legacy for a few years. Looking at the data from MTG Goldfish, Orcish Bowmasters is now in 43% of decks, Plague Engineer in 26% of decks, and our friend Grief right here in 19% of decks. So if a lot of people are trying to grief you and then reanimate that grief afterwards, that might actually kind of push our Voidmere into the pseudo-playable range. Especially on Magic Online, where people are experimenting with all sorts of new combo decks built around cards like Creative Technique that allow you to cast additional spells without paying their mana cost. See where I'm going with this? And against a lot of the fair decks, we're actually going to go really, really far back into the tank to play Humility. This is a card that used to see play in control decks like Miracles that were very creature light, because turning all of your opponent's Hate Bears and Grizzlebrands and friends into 1/1s without abilities means that you have a lot more time to answer them. So let's go ahead and look at the full deck list here. Now, today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com as well as Cool Stuff Inc. So here is the deck list in all of its glory. Notice that we do have an extremely high land count. We have 27 lands, and this is so that we can fuel Mox Diamond, as well as use Crucible of Worlds to recur our Wastelands and our City of Traders, or whatever else ends up making it to the graveyard in one capacity or another. In terms of physically winning the game, we're not very good at that. We're more of a don't lose the game deck and hope our opponent concedes. We do have ways that we can win the game. You know, we can Palantir an opponent to death. We can animate some things with Karn the Great Creator, or otherwise lock them out with Mycosynth Lattice. But generally speaking, this is a deck that is playing not to lose, instead of a deck that is playing to win. And we've seen on this channel that a lot of times doing that gives you kind of medium results, but we're going to do some fun things today to other people, and they are maybe not going to like them. Fun things for me, for you, the viewer. Highlighting a couple of specific things here. Number one, the initiative is something that often destroys these decks that are hoping to hide behind an ensnaring bridge or a moat or something like that. So we do have a way to take the initiative. Number two, we do have kind of a board wipe / pseudo hate card in Karn Silex that we can tutor for. With that being said, I think we will go ahead and jump directly into the league here. Let's battle.
Command Fest Orlando is coming October 20th to 22nd. So get ready for a weekend full of Magic the Gathering in one of the country's premier vacation destinations. Get your tickets now at commandfestorlando.com.
Now, I promise that I will not spend this entire league shitting on Voidmere for the purpose of entertainment. However, this is symmetrical. I have no colored mana in my hand. Just throwing it out there. I am still going to keep this hand, but I think I just can't play Voidmere on turn 1. I think I just have to play Wasteland and pass the turn, because I think Trinisphere and Crucible of Worlds are just so important to my plan. I think I play Wasteland. The Ancient Tomb getting Wastelanded here. Classic. Absolutely classic fucking punish. YouTube comments are losing their goddamn minds right now. No land from my opponent. Yeah, my opponent would have been able to literally cast 0 spells if I did a Voidmere. Awesome. I'm still just going to Trinisphere this turn. I would still like to resolve a Crucible later. Yep. All right. Good stuff. We know my opponent doesn't have a land, so unless they top deck a soul land, they're just not casting any spells this turn. Yeah. Okay. So now I have to figure out what I'm doing here. I actually have a lot of what I would consider to be bullshit for this matchup. Like, these 15 cards are pretty damn good versus my opponent's deck. Karn Silex is probably a beating here. Ensnaring Bridges are reasonable. Yeah, like, all my cards are fucking good. I don't think I'm going to try to Armageddon my opponent. Like, I basically care about destroying Urza Saga. I can do that with Wastelands. My cards, like, seem perfectly reasonable here. Like, kind of one of my plans was just to, like, always board out Voidmere when sideboarding, and that doesn't work here. This doesn't seem necessary. Some of my opponent's creatures fly, but I stop important things like Urza Saga. Can we just win by concession? I wonder if I can just, like, win via concession here, rather than trying to actually physically win the game. Cut one random... Oh, I just can't count? I just can't count. Let's leave a Palantir in there then. Turn 1, Voidmere. Keep. This whole, like, Voidmere plus a bunch of colorless cards that I want to play as follow-up is, like, super awkward. Maybe I'm hoping that my opponent has Force of Will. Like, I cast a Voidmere. Yeah, I will just answer that via Wasteland. That's fine. Okay. Mox Opal is on. Emery is on. Emery kind of whiffs. The Baubles will be fine, though. There's another Moat. So I think my opponent is going to get an Urza Saga some portion of the time. I think I am just going to go for the Voidmere and think that Moat just wins me this game most of the time, assuming that I can eventually cast it. So my opponent could have a decently sized Urza Saga token here if they have another land. They're waiting to pay costs on something. Okay, they got some colored mana for a Patchwork Automaton, which is something that'll scale up. Again, Moat makes that less of a problem. Am I wastelanding Urza's Saga? Pretty sure. I wonder if this deck has enough white sources in it. They've gone down one Bauble. They're keeping Metalcraft. They're going to cast a Bauble, which will get countered, but still is worth a +1/+1 counter on a Patchwork Automaton. Okay. Yep, so I need a Moat, and then I very easily win this game. I am going to need the white mana in order to do that. So, situation's not great. Ancient Tomb being my land is additionally quite awkward. I take 5 this turn, going to 8. Okay, that's very good. So I'm going to take 5, guaranteed 6. This is 7, 8. I probably need to block with Mishra's Factory this turn, and just hope to draw another white source next turn to secure the win. This does not trample despite being a big boy. Yep. Patchwork Automaton putting in some work here. There it comes. Animate this. Go to blocks. Don't need to tap it for any reason. This thing's definitely not dying. I have missed on the white land, unfortunately. So I am dead. I can cast a... Oh, I'm not. No, I am dead. I'm 1 mana short from not being dead, because I could Crucible, play Mishra's Factory, but I can't animate it and block. How many turns were we away? One turn away. Damn. I get in another situation like that, I really want another one of these in the deck. How important is humility? Like, my creature's abilities, like, sometimes matter. Like, I do need to remove flying from some things if I want Moat to be a lockout. I think 3 of those is still okay. This hand is very slow. It has both humility and Moat. I think this is a hand that just dies if my opponent Force of Wills me. This is fine. I have the Void Mirror, and I have multiple follow-up plays afterwards. I probably get rid of the Mishra's Factory here. And I'll be perfectly happy keeping this one. I just have, like, kind of a wham, bam, bam, 1, 2, 3. All right, the Mirror's in play. That's not a card that leaves play easily. Urza's Saga. Sorry, friend. We live in a wasteland world. So that was probably my opponent's primary way to win this game. And we eliminated it. They're still in the game if they can play another Urza's Saga immediately. What the fuck is this? Oh, it's a Shadow Spear. Sure. Am I Karning or am I Trinisphereing? I think I Trinisphere first. I think it's pretty important that the Karn resolves. Also, you know, I do need to spend colored mana on the Karn. Alright. So a creature can realistically come down this turn. An Emery is fine. Okay, there's some stuff in there. But we're about to shut off my opponent's blue mana uncounterably. Let's go, yeah. 4 mana for a Karn. All this stuff is off. I think I'm just going to plus. I don't think I need to immediately tutor. I'm just going to decrease my opponent's artifact count for things like Kappa Cannoneer and Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor. Yeah. Void Mirror. Void Mirror good? Question mark. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I personally keep all of my deck lists for every format on this site. I love that I can go and sort them by types and tags if I need to. There's a lot of different viewing options. It can give you some math about your mana symbol, your curve, and you can even playtest and do sample opening hands with it. Check this site out if you haven't before. It's awesome. All right, how am I feeling about a turn 2 Trinisphere backed by multiple Wastelands and a Karn? Fine. I wouldn't say any better than fine, but fine. A deck building thought just occurred to me. If I end up in an Ensnaring Bridge lockout scenario, I might be forced to cast a Void Mirror. And hopefully at that point I would have persistent colored mana. But like looking at an opening hand like this one, if my Caracas were to get wastelanded and then I would find myself in one of those situations, I couldn't actually pay. So that's where we're at. Mountain? My hand's not good against fucking Mountain. It's not wastelandable. It's fucking broken. I am expecting that we are playing against Red Prison, and my Trinisphere was not worth the 2 life, but some portion of the time we are playing against some other deck. Yeah. We are hoping that my opponent does not play a threat. Oh, holy fuck. Nice. So, I will now wasteland that and drop a Crucible. And next turn I will probably start beating my opponent to death with a 3/3 creature off of Karn the Great Creator. Oh shit. Nice. If they miss that land drop, I have changed my mind. We're going to play that. Drop Karn. We're going to Karn minus for the liquimetal coating. And my opponent has this turn to draw a soul land and put something into play. Otherwise, they would be very hard pressed to cast another spell this game. Now, sideboarding is a little awkward here. If my opponent is playing a Red Prison Moon Stompy decklist, their hand was not a keep. Full stop. A hand that cannot have a play on 3 mana is not a reasonable keep. So, my opponent is either an inexperienced Moon Stompy pilot, or this is actually something like a Ruby Storm decklist, and the sideboarding for those two things are wildly different. So for example, if my opponent is playing a Stompy decklist, I want this sort of stuff, which I do not want in my deck if my opponent is playing a Ruby Storm decklist. And I really want something like Voidmere if they are playing a Ruby Storm decklist that has a whole bunch of 0-cost artifacts, and I don't want these if my opponent is playing Stompy. Against either deck, Armageddon's not exactly insane. I feel comfortable pulling those. I am probably going to keep the Voidmeres to hedge. I will probably board in 2 ensnaring bridges or 1 ensnaring bridge and a moat and call that good. Tabernacle is medium against both decks. Might just do that and pull another moat into the deck list. This is okay versus goblins. All right. So this is the moment of truth. This is right here where I make the decision, is my opponent playing Ruby Storm? If the answer is yes, this is a reasonable keep. If the answer is no, I'm a little bit away from having good stuff happen. I'm going to keep. But I think that mountain was indicative of combo. Opponent's on 6. Mountain Red Flame. Okay, I was correct. 4 mana. Cheska's Will. Alright. That's a Burning Wish. Alright. They're still going. My opponent will cast the Medallion, cast Burning Wish, and then cast Empty the Warrens. Oh my god, they're going for Galvanic Relay. They either don't have Empty or don't want to do that. Okay. So, my Voidmere's not exactly insane here. My opponent has revealed, like, Ritual Mana and a bunch of red cards. I think that's okay. I think it's still worth playing. We'll junk 1 planes so that next turn I can go and just go land into Humility to shut off a Burgy ability. We'll kind of see where this turn goes. Definitely scared. Manamorphose nets mana. So it'll probably be something like Manamorphose to go +1 mana, Ancient Tomb, Burgy, Manamorphose, and try to go from there. They can't... Well, I guess they can play another Ruby Medallion from Exile, but it costs them a colored mana, which is kind of a big deal right now. Okay, so this is the line that I foresaw. Ruby Medallion makes that net a mana. Seething Song makes this much easier for my opponent. That's a great draw for them. Okay. Now they can Manamorphose to net more mana. Norm 4, 5 mana available. Burning Wishes exist, but the Galvanic Relay was already used. So this is going to be a little more awkward. Cast in Flames. That probably leads to a kill in some capacity. Like, Manamorphose is used to make black, and then my opponent can Tendrils me. Okay. That's fine. I fully suspect that I am dead. But I'm not quite at the point where I'm ready to just fast forward to lethal being on this stack, because this is, I suppose, still interesting because of the Voidmere. Alright. Oh, that is not black mana. Are you just going to get to a high enough storm count that you can kill me with Grape Shot? Like, I guess that's also possible, just kind of eyeballing the graveyard. I'm surprised we still need to be casting those sorts of spells. Like, I feel like I see lethal from here, but I don't know how my opponent has sideboarded, I guess. Sure. Okay, like, I was starting to, like, wonder whether or not these cards were in here or whether I was just, like, a total crazy person. At this point, I'm going to skip to whatever's relevant. Alright, my opponent has a bonus round in play. They've cast a Burning Wish, and I assume that this is going to get the thing that actually kills me. Alright, that has chosen a Grape Shot. That'll be fine. That'll kill me. I will concede so they don't have to click through that. And now we know what we're playing against. So the Ensnaring Bridges that I've boarded in are maybe not necessary. My opponent had an opportunity to empty the Warrens and did not take it. Which, if I read that, like, an empty the Warrens almost certainly kills me if they cast that. I think I read that as they don't have it. So I think I'm comfortable going Tabernacle out. I think I will go down on these Ensnaring Bridges. Sorcerer's Spyglass is a thing for Harnfell. I could play the Armageddons. My opponent oftentimes needs to pass the turn once. And then I can, like, grab a Soul Land or whatever. I'm really looking at one of these cards to stop my opponent's nonsense. I am going to throw Tabernacle back in as an extra land to discard to Mox Diamond. I think it's just so important that I do this stuff. I do a Sorceress Spyglass for Harnfell. And play an Armageddon. I think I will still keep the moats to lock out Birgies long term. No, this isn't fast enough. This hand's awkward. I think I'm going to keep it. I will Chalice on 1 and Chalice on 0 on turn 1, Trinisphere on turn 2, find a way to win the game later. I have to hold off on playing Voidmere for a little while. If I had another Soul Land, I would keep this Chalice to cast on 2 to lock out a huge portion of my opponent's spells, but I don't. Alright. There's my white mana. JK. Chalice on 0. We do drop a Trinisphere, though. It's another basic mountain. Hey, that is exactly the sort of card that I am looking for here. So this is a win condition or a source of card advantage for my opponent. I'm going to bottom both of those. I don't want these cards. Alright, so my opponent got hit for 4 when I milled Moat. Alright. That's a Crucible. That will be worth my life to play, as my opponent will probably be milling lands. I would like that Armageddon to blow these up. I'm going to bottom that, top that, and that's either worth 4 damage or I have an Armageddon in hand that I can eventually cast. Alright, opponent's at 12. We are both at 12. Alright, opponent's just discarding. No reason not to play the Ancient Tomb. With Chalice on 0 in play, I don't think I play Voidmere. Palantir triggers. I'm still going to bottom this. I would like white mana at some point. I'm going to top that Humility. It's worth 4 damage. All right. There's now white mana in the graveyard. My opponent is at 8. Pretty soon, my opponent will have to switch to letting me draw cards. So, let's Flagstones. I don't think I want to Voidmere. Karn the Great Creator is great. So let's bottom Mox Diamond. Top Karn. See if my opponent is going to let me draw that. They are. Now that will kill my opponent quickly. Like, I can plus on a Crucible and just attack my opponent. And, like, that's perfectly reasonable as a turn. Sorceress Spyglass. So this is 4 and 3, as long as I'm willing to take 4, which I think I am. Okay, my opponent has reasonable cards. I'd like to actually get rid of some cards in my hand if they have Jeska's Will. Okay. We'll name Harnfell. I will take 4 to play Karn. I will plus on Karn, animating my Crucible of Worlds. I will play a Mox Diamond to get it out of my hand. Oh wait, I can't do that right now. I will attack my opponent for 3. Palantir happens. I'm going to bottom both of those because I think my opponent is going to make me draw a card. And these aren't what I'm looking for. There's a Moat. Not interested in that right now. All right, and my opponent's done. This is 2-0 with this deck, right? Yeah. My opponent has said they are ready for this spice. Well, it's here, friend. Don't worry. Fool, your Chalice of the Void will do nothing. Yeah, that's fine. Now this does does also mean that my Chalice of the Void does nothing. So that's a thing. We Void Mirren out here? What if my opponent's like a colorless deck? What if my opponent's a colorless deck? Let's find out. I may just be hemorrhaging 2 life points versus a Moon Stompy deck list or a Black Stompy deck list, but some portion of the time my opponent is just like Grim Monolith deck, and they are very sad. Damn it. Why'd you keep your hand? I will forgive you if you play Caves of Chaos Adventurer next turn. Then it's fine. Let's drop ye old Palantir and start this minigame. I am not interested in Mox Diamond. I am not interested in City of Traders, and they're not worth a lot of damage. My opponent takes 0. All right. You are forgiven. Your mulligan choice is perfectly reasonable. So I need a, like, humility or a moat. Okay, that'll do. So we are going to go ahead, take 2, play Karn. I am going to Karn minus, and we're going to have to start out with an ensnaring bridge here. We'll grab that, and we'll see whether or not my opponent wants to... Ooh. Armageddon Tabernacle? We're going to bottom this one. So, if my opponent puts counters on Caves of Chaos Adventurer, that is 7 damage. Do they go at me, or do they go at Karn? If they go at Karn, Armageddon is perfectly reasonable. If they go at me, I go to 7. Trap represents 5 damage. So this is a leveling question. Does my opponent realize that Caves of Chaos Adventurer plus Trap plus Ancient Tomb activation is lethal in a single turn cycle? Or am I just going to get... Is Karn just going to get attacked? Simian Spirit Guide could pay for Caves of Chaos Adventurer. My opponent does not have Simian Spirit Guide unless it was their previous draw. They had Simian Spirit Guide. They would have used it to power out Caves of Chaos Adventure on turn 2, rather than playing it on turn 3. That is still 2 draws towards Simian Spirit Guide. I'm going to top this card. Alright, my opponent has milled it. I would mill that too after I thought about it for that long. So this is a critical moment for my opponent. Like this choice is a very big fucking deal. Ooh, they are red-white initiative. Please don't send out the Airlingas. Now they get to make that decision with full knowledge of my hand. That's rough. All right, so my Ensnaring Bridge now costs 5, which means the Ancient Tomb tap is obligatory in order to cast it. So this Caves of Chaos Adventurer should probably go at me. Oh, it goes at Karn! All right. All right. Ooh. Okay. Saves a lot of life. I have 5 mana to work with this turn. We're definitely in start casting stuff to get it out of hand territory. So, like, This Chalice, I am just going to play and let get countered. Unfortunately, my opponent's Chalice gets to counter it before my Voidmere gets to counter it. So if I play Ensnaring Bridge and a land, I am at 3 cards in hand. Anointed Peacekeeper can attack. I will take 3 damage. If I play Humility, I will take 4 damage. I think I'm supposed to play Humility, though. It gets the white card out of my hand so that I can use white mana more effectively to get other stuff out of my hand in the future. And it prevents 4th Aerlingas from absolutely savaging me. And reduces Ensnaring Bridge to costing less again. So I'm going to get the Tabernacle out of my hand rather than play City this turn. So I believe this is a timestamp situation where my Crucible? Definite no to Trinisphere. I'm going to say no to Crucible. Okay. Palantir Ensnaring Bridge is what you might call a combo, now that I'm thinking about it. But hopefully it's not gonna matter too much. Alright. I take 4 damage. A new Tabernacle. Okay. I think I'm just short here. So I Ensnaring Bridge, I play a land, I go to 2 cards in hand. But then my opponent makes me draw. Yeah, I think I'm just short here. So I drop Ensnaring Bridge. This is 4 cards in hand. I guess I have to play towards my opponent misplaying? Somehow and dying? Keep this Palantir. Yeah, so I bottom both of these, and then they just make me draw. I'm dead to the onboard creatures. Yeah, we needed to find Moat. I'm gonna concede here. Damn. We weren't far away from stabilizing that. Okay, so I would like Ensnaring Bridges. I would like Moat. I would not like Voidmere. I would not like a Chalice. I would not like Trinisphere. I don't think we're going to get to board in this many cards. We're going to see whether or not I board in all the Ensnaring Bridges. I might need to leave one so that Karn can tutor for it. Oh, Karn's Silex. Unimpressive. Probably still better than some of the other stuff that's in my deck right now, though. I can fill with an Armageddon. Yeah, I don't like how this matchup looks. Chalice is a thing that I can play for not a lot of mana to lower my hand for Ensnaring Bridge. This is awkward. Humility Moat is pretty good. This is 2 mana on turn 1, 3 mana on turn 2. No guaranteed for the 4th mana source. I have 2 draws for, what, like 25 lands? That's okay. I'm going to say that's okay. We'll Mox Diamond, discard this, drop a Plains, and pass. We want to play Plains, I think. I guess there's like Lilia and Squee, actually, hedging against. So it's like hedging against Blood Moon effects for like an Ancient Tomb draw versus being able to bounce a Squee or a Lilia if my opponent is playing them. But those are less common in the red-white builds. Ooh, hedging against Blood Moon worked. This actually sets my opponent back on mana. Chalice on 0 is fine. Opponent's hand would have been very good on the play. Land pass. We're now hoping to dodge a Hate Bear. I'm pretty okay with an initiative creature. Ooh, no follow-up creature. Alright, I have missed on my land on the 2 draws. My opponent has a Chalice in play. I'm not expecting Trinisphere type cards. I'm not going to play the Chalice. That is an Archon, which is one of the things that punishes playing the Chalice. Well, I'm going to cast that. It is awkward to use because it will blow up my Mox Diamond, and I currently need to get to 4 mana to start doing cool shit. But I am fine in terms of a clock. Ooh. Am I activating this to kill Archon? Maybe. Not now. I'm going to play an Ensnaring Bridge. Some portions of the time, this is me giving up an Ensnaring Bridge for free, but in theory, I shouldn't need it. Like, I cast these 4-drops, and then I can crack a Karn Chalice for X equals 3 and get rid of a lot of what my opponent has going on. Or, and hear me out, things could continue like this. I will cast this. Doing this on 1 has minimal impact on the game. I don't think my opponent will have sideboarded in Dead Gone based on what I have shown them thus far. I'll take my 2 damage from the bird, and we can move on with our lives. We are really fucking good at drawing 4-drops. I'm still just going to continue taking the damage from this. Again, I am 1 land away from probably locking up this game. Thanks, deck. I will not cast that one. Stupid bird. Down to 10. Okay. Now, this is great. This is what I'm looking for. However, Archon. Assuming my opponent plays out no further threats, I am still on track to win this, like, pretty handily. I'm at 8. All right. We are chilling. Opponent just either unable to or unwilling to cast further spells. This is Humility first, as this will remove flying and the other relevant abilities from the Archon. And next turn, Moat is probably pretty close to a hard lockout for my opponent. All right, down to 7. That's a Flagstones. So I will go ahead and Moat. Okay, if memory serves, if I play this, I don't actually get a land. So this is, do I want to put this in the graveyard for later? I think no. Okay, nice. That's good enough for a win here. That was turn 11. That was a weird game. I am happy with how I've sideboarded. Unless my opponent chalices on 0 on turn 1, this hand's pretty good. But if they chalice on 0, I'm full dead. Well, actually, maybe this isn't that good. Right? Because this doesn't have the things that actually win me the game. It just lets me do annoying wasteland shit. Yeah, actually, I am going to look for something that protects me better. So I would keep this Junking City. I would play Mox Diamond, discard a city, play Ancient Tomb, play Palantir. Have these left over. My opponent would take the damage off of Palantir rather than let me draw. Can be a little awkward. They have a medium start or a lock piece start, this is good. If they have a fast start, this is bad. But I currently get to keep 6 of these. I think that's going to be better than the average 5 a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. Like a 5-card hand that has a fast Ensnaring Bridge, for example, is better than this. But a lot of times I'm going to trip over my own mana. A Spirit Guide? Oh no, a Chalice on 1. Okay, so I don't think my opponent has a good read on some of the cards in my deck. Which honestly is totally fair. But I was in really bad shape if they just played that on 0. Still getting rid of City. I need this persistent mana. And I will play my clock. I'm going to get to back my clock up by Moat, which is really strong. We're going to just bottom both of those. I do not want to draw them. I assume my opponent will go the damage route. They take 3 to a Crucible. All right, so now we're going to see a threat of some kind come down. Hopefully it's not the Anointed Who's He What's It. Like, we're just so happy if my opponent plays an initiative creature. Like, we buy so much time against that by having Moat. All right. Chalice is not what I'm looking to draw, but, like, we ripped the Moat on turn 1. which is absolutely what I am looking for in this matchup. I'll bottom both of those. My opponent has let me draw a card, and they have let me draw Humility. Love that. So my opponent's primary game now is to go and get through. That's actually very fucking good for me. That is, like, I cannot emphasize enough how nice it is for me to not take Ancient Tomb damage. Like, I'm so effing pumped, and, like, I'm not going to lose City of Traders either. Wasteland's not good with Blood Moon in play. You feeling damage or cards now? Feeling damage. Get Armageddoned. So, the thing that I now need to do to win this game is find a Karn the Great Creator and stop my opponent going through the Undercity. 3 more trips through the Undercity can kill me, but otherwise we're pretty safe. Boromir, that's a 1/1. That is a Tabernacle. We'll play it for funsies. Do I want a Chalice on 3? I think I want a Chalice on 3 next turn, because that'll prevent any sort of, like, Oblivion Ring type card from exiling one of these things. So I don't want to draw these cards, but these cards are worth a lot of damage. I think I go looking for Karn aggressively. That is a Flagstones. My opponent gets an extra card here. Yep. You may make 2 1/1s that cannot attack. That's so painful for my opponent. No Chalice on 0, so this is very reasonable to play. Let's play it. I'll discard a land. I will drop this. The rare Chalice on 3. Bottom both of those. We have found a Crucible, which lets me play mountains from my graveyard, which is pretty cool. So my opponent may look at their top 10 cards and put a 1/1 creature into play. There it is. Now it does get temporary hexproof and 4/4 status. Yeah, my opponent is done with me. Yep, my opponent says they only have 1 out to enchantments, and they're donezo. Alright, my opponent has revealed a Yorion deck. Which, assuming that this is something like Death and Taxes, the hand is maybe not fully optimal. I'm going to be missing another white source. But Humility is going to be really strong here at shutting off my opponent's late game blink nonsense. And if we're just playing against some Yorion blue good cards pile, my hand's actually quite good. But if we're playing against Death and Taxes, like Chalice of the Void is not what I am looking for. Are we out here wastelanding? We are. We are absolutely out here wastelanding. Bam. And then I can play Crucible or Trinisphere next turn, whichever I feel is appropriate, depending on what I see from my opponent. It's probably just land pass. Ooh. This is probably just an indication of a black-white D&T build. I believe that this turn is supposed to be Flagstones into Trinisphere. This makes it so that my opponent can't play a 2-drop on their turn, and then I can go Crucible into Wasteland if they play a non-basic land, which they did. This is disgusting. Love it. So yeah, splashes in Death and Taxes. Very much not going to be free. At some point, we will probably eat a scrub land in this matchup, and my opponent is going to have a lower density of basic planes than a normal D&T build would. Let me rephrase that. Than a mono-white D&T build would, because the black-white Taxes build is very common right now. Let's drop Humility. And we'll have to find a way to not die to just a couple of 1/1s that my opponent plays. But some sort of Ensnaring Bridge or Moat or Karn will accomplish that. So I don't think it is worth 2 life to play a second Humility. I will do that once it does not cost me any life. Next turn, I can start thinking about wastelanding fetch lands. But that's not a play I'm super excited about. Oh, just fully No play? That's weird. I'm going to assume that my opponent has some sort of orcish bowmasters or equivalent that they are going to play with flash. And I'll expect to see that at my end step. I'm expecting triple fetch. Oh, is Esper instead. Dress down. Understood. Is my opponent on, like, Esper Stifle Knot? Okay. Esper Control? Again, I can just die to 1/1s if I never draw any sort of relevant spell, like a Palantir, a Karn, Ensnaring Bridge, Moat. I do have to worry about Force of Will now, which is not something that I was expecting to have to worry about. But I'm insulated from something like Teferi Bounce, which I guess is cool. Alright. You have a 1/1. Mox Diamond, not what I'm looking for, but I don't want to be tapping Ancient Tombs. So I guess it is fine to play this now to just get Hellbent for later. And I can eventually play that Ancient Tomb out of the graveyard if I feel like that's a thing that I need to do for some reason. 2 points of chip damage here. And another 1/1. I am on a 3-turn clock. Palantir's great. And it will be resolving. So I would be milling here if I were the opponent. I'll bottom both of those. We are not looking for land right now. We're looking for business. My opponent takes 0 off flagstones being milled. I'm down to 6 here. And there we go. So let's float a white. Play a flagstones. Keep this one. Search for a plains tapped. I'm about to get Force of Willed. I don't think there's anything to be done about that. Because I just have to play my spells as I have them. And hope to draw another afterwards. Shit, I didn't get Force of Willed. Wow. Okay. Oh, I run into the Ensnaring Bridge Palantir problem, don't I? Ooh. Fuck. This? I can get Ensnaring Bridge this turn. No, I'm gonna get Karn's Silex this turn. Oh, this enters tapped. I need to blow up my own Palantir to Ensnaring Bridge lock my opponent. Okay. So, if this resolves, Force of Will, importantly, is off. And that means I can resolve Ensnaring Bridge next turn. And then, well, if Karn is alive. Karn may or may not be alive. Bottom that. Bottom that. My opponent takes 0. Alright. So, is my Karn dying? I assume the answer is yes. Alright, so I take 1. Karn dies. Force of Will is off. Crucible's not great. So let's thin a land out of my deck. Just flagstones, play flagstones, keep flagstones. Yes. Grab a basic plains. I can only activate this as a sorcery. Awkward. I think I do it. This gets rid of my Chalice and Trinisphere and Palantir. But I need to just, like, stop taking damage. And then I will just drop a Crucible for later. Now, my opponent can still get 5 hits with 1/1s in. I don't know that I can wait one more turn cycle here. Force of Will is noticeably better against me. I get another Karn. I can Karn and then Bridge. Like, that's totally fine. Okay. That's an Underground Sea that I'll wasteland when I have the opportunity to. Ooh, that's very, well, no, it's not, right? Yeah. Okay. I will probably end up wastelanding this Underground Sea. We're not quite ready for that. Let's do this whole thing where I thin another land out of the deck. Yeah, I need my lands for another turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I can wasteland this without really missing out on anything. I go to 1 and see where this goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And even additionally thin another land out of the deck. No Force of Will. All right. Oh no, this Armageddon's gonna get stuck in my hand. Damn it. Is there another way out? Silex enters tapped. Yeah, I can't get this last card out of my hand without killing myself. Fuck. Yeah, I can plus and block. Yeah, I'm just short here. I wonder if I could have, like, foreseen this and played out Armageddon at some point. I couldn't have done it last turn. Was last turn the turn that I drew Armageddon? I think so. So if I did it, if I Armageddon last turn and then played a land from graveyard, I have 1 mana, and then I only have 2 mana this turn because I can't tap an Ancient Tomb. Damn. Okay. Deck has so many 4-drops that can be, like, just a little bit awkward with the whole ensnaring bridges, and, like, the Palantirs also make them awkward. Maybe we need more moats and fewer ensnaring bridges. So this is not a Void Mirror matchup. That's going. That'll give me a moat and an Armageddon. And I've got other things that I can think about. Chalice and Trinisphere are both a little medium here. I think I'm going to keep Trinisphere as anti-Force of Will tech. I think I'm going to get rid of Chalice. I think addressing creatures in fairways is more important than stopping Brainstorm, Bonder, and Friends. Do I want to be able to tutor for one of these? It's very slow to tutor for. I might just put in another one of these. I think I will more frequently want to tutor for Bridge. I mean, this has Humility Moat, so I think I'm good with what I'm looking at. I'm going to play the Flagstone out early. I guess there's some consideration to play Ancient Tomb for if I very specifically draw a Karn the Great Creator. Ooh. Okay, well, I know what I'm doing with my life. Note that my opponent does have a lot of small-ish creatures, so it's not like Ensnaring Bridge is just the stone cold nuts. Ooh, a Wasteland. Alright. That slows me down by a turn cycle, giving my opponent a chance to tick up that vial and do some gross things. The vial goes up. Meddling Mage on Humility would be a kick in the teeth, but we're fine with stuff like this. Sure. Okay, cool. So we're going to dodge Meddling Mage, at least for now. All right, and there's the fetch to clear the Brainstorm. Oh, no immediate fetch. Okay. So this turn's super interesting, because if I want to respect Force of Will because of how important Humility is to my game plan, I should play Trinisphere this turn. And so accordingly, I am going to do that, despite the fact that my opponent can kind of still cheat on mana costs with Aether Vial. I just think this Humility has to resolve. But it's awkward because this then gives my opponent another turn cycle to put a Meddling Mage into play and stop Humility from ever happening. Note that Force of Will, tapping 3 lands, can still get around Trinisphere. Like, that's still very much a thing. But it would have to be 3 basics. No fetch off the Brainstorm. Okay, yeah. So I am going to be able to fully play around Force of Will here by wastelanding in first main. That's annoying, but fine. I am going to play around Force of Will. Like, my opponent can draw a card. That's fine. Yep. You stifling? Oh, you're just going to Bowmasters now? Sure. I played around a Force of Will that I didn't have to. Actually, which one of these is more important to resolve? I think it's Humility, because I already have an Ensnaring Bridge in play that over time will help against most of these creatures. And, like, the Leovold ability is off. The Meddling Mage is off. Any sort of, like, Lauren type card that could destroy my stuff is off. 3 different colors for a Teferi. That's very good. That results in me taking a few more points of damage this turn, which is annoying. So now, is it Moat this turn? It's probably Moat this turn, because it stops so much damage. All right. My life total is quite relevant right now. Sure. Oh, that is just straight up venturing that spell back to my hand. And then I'm going to take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage. I will have 4 cards in hand. All those can attack. That'll do. No trophy with Void Mirror. All right, what are we working with here? Mox Diamond, discard City of Traders, have 3 mana, Chalice on 1, play one of these spells and not be able to cast the other. I'm not interested in this. Am I playing Legacy if I keep this hand? Like, is turn 3 Palantir into maybe turn 4 Planeswalker? Nah. Okay. I get 5 of these? Ancient Tomb Chalice. Plains Trinisphere. Keep Karn as the 5th card. Hope to get a land drop to play Karn. This is very easily the best hand of the hands that I was presented with so far. This is going to be a hand that will be very good against a combo deck, and probably just not hold up against something fair and mid-rangey that can just put a creature into play that attacks me. So, okay. Yeah. Don't be show and tell, though. Unfortunately, most of the things you put in off of show and tell do fly. Force of Will. Not Force of Will? Force of Will. Pitching Atraxa. Fuck, we're playing against show and tell. Now, I've said this so many times on this channel, but historically speaking, Show and Tell has an incredible matchup versus Chalice of the Void decks. Hello. We 3-balling again. Okay. You're not brainstorming in response. I have a Chalice. You're dazing. Okay. I mean, that's fine. I would much rather that get dazed than the Karn that I'm hoping to play next turn. All right, here we go. So I will Karn. I will Karn minus. Yes. I will choose Ensnaring Bridge. Now, sort of a fun thing that my opponent doesn't know is that I have multiple Ensnaring Bridges. And these decks traditionally play one Ensnaring Bridge. So I'm going to cast an Ensnaring Bridge that my opponent may or may not immediately counter. So let's see how this goes. Okay, cool. I'll now Karn minus. I will pick up Liquimetal Coating to attack my opponent's lands. All right, fantastic. Do I want to cast Void Mirror so that my opponent cannot Force of Will? Yes. This is a little weird, but feels correct. Take out that island. And we're in a good position. I'll eventually work towards Mycosynth Lattice locking my opponent out of the game, but in the short term, I'll probably just beat them to death with a Void Mirror or Ensnaring Bridge. I'll plus on Ensnaring Bridge, it's more damage. Okay, my opponent is fine with that. We got a little lucky there. I'm very happy to take game 1. The Grizzlebrand, Atraxa, Emrakul all fly. I am still probably keeping Moat, as weird as that sounds, because Humility plus Moat is still a lockout that I am interested in obtaining. I am interested in a shit ton of copies of Ensnaring Bridge. I will probably board in Moat. I don't know whether or not my opponent is playing Omniscience yet, and that changes my evaluation of Void Mirror. Karn Living Legacy is a card that I haven't drawn yet, and don't know that I'm the most excited about it. It's a little slow here. 2 copies of Ensnaring Bridge are coming in. Void Mirror does stop Force of Will and Daze, and maybe some Omniscience nonsense. I don't know that I'm super excited about trying to tabernacle my opponent out. I'm going to cut those before I cut Voidmere. That gives me the extra moat to try to assemble the A plus B. And now it's like, is Crucible or Armageddon better than Voidmere? Sometimes. Voidmere on the draw is a little slow. Actually, I could Sorceress Spyglass for sneak attack. Let's go Voidmere's out on the draw. I'm going to drop in an extra Crucible and play an Armageddon. And then I'll think about those Voidmeres if we end up going to a game 3. This attempts a turn 2 Karn to find an ensnaring bridge. I can play Crucible on turn 1 if I want. This hand already feels like a mulligan with double Crucible. I am just going to pitch this one. The fast Armageddon. That's not really what I want to do. 1, 2, 3. A land to discard to it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably 5. I'm keeping this. I'm always pitching the Armageddon. If I spike a land, I can attempt a turn 1 Karn. I don't think I want to go down that route. Okay. We're going to set that to the side. And I'm going to have to decide whether or not I want to wasteland my opponent. Decision made for me. We will wasteland. Note that my opponent's Lotus Petals are now off. Holy shit. No fucking way. What the fuck? Why did you keep that hand? What are you doing? Norod is not good enough to beat my entire deck on its own? Oh my god. Like, I'll take the free win, but holy shit. Like, Daze isn't online. I can Wasteland lock my opponent. Like, that's a soft lock on the game. Alright. Okay. So we'll go Wasteland from Graveyard here. And I'll use this to cast Karn. This will be Dazeable, but I'm fine putting my opponent to the test. Okay, cool. Immediately minus Karn. Yes. We'll pick up the 1 ensnaring bridge that is remaining in the sideboard. We are now insulated versus show and tell. And my opponent is very far away from something like a sneak attack. So my opponent's either going to have to discard, okay, or do something like that. Trinisphere is cool. Am I willing to take damage this turn? Probably fine. Confirming I boarded in Sorceress Spyglass. Let's do this. Which one's newly controlled? This one's newly controlled. So I'm going to tap that for mana. Tap this for mana. Attempt Trinisphere. It has resolved. At this point, probably go ahead and Karn minus. Yes, and we'll pick up Liquid Metal Coating. I will fire up the Mishra's Factory that can attack and start getting in there for some damage. Opponent's at 16. Alright, my opponent has no castable spells. You may discard your Emrakul, absolutely. Alright. So, we're going to do something a little cute here. This is my newly controlled one, this one. We're going to go 3 mana. We're going to play our Liquid Metal Coating. We are going to Wasteland Scalding Tarn, which forces my opponent to fetch. Oh, my opponent has no rod. I fucked up. Alright. I have made a small error. I don't think it is going to matter. So I just played Liquid Metal Coating, right? I just played Liquid Metal Coating. Okay. So let's plus blow up this. Activate one of these and start beating down. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about Null Rod. I'm so far ahead in this game that I don't think it super matters, but it is just, like, very objectively an error. I should have just gotten, no? No? Yeah. So I messed up at the end there, but that is still a very, very, very respectable 4-1 finish for this league. Honestly, this was so much better than I expected this league to go when I looked at Sean's initial deck list. Um, I'm not going to say that this deck was perfect, and I am not going to say that you should expect to consistently 4-1 with this deck list. But we, with a little help from our opponents, did very well this league. I think this deck has some negative synergy in it that's awkward. So Palantir plus Ensnaring Bridge is awkward. Voidmere plus all the soul lands when you don't actually have white mana is awkward. Like, there's some tension here, but this is probably one of the better constructed decks that we have played that looks like this. And with a few more leagues with this, I probably could have foreseen some of the problems that I ran into and more actively worked to avoid them. I will say this pile of cards is probably going to be disgustingly good against a lot of combo decks. Like, this is 15 cards that would really punish like any sort of artifact-based combo in particular. If you're expecting to play against a lot of storm decks like the Epic Storm, or you're expecting to play against a lot of creative technique or something like that, where like Voidmire's text is relevant, like this is good. But as we saw, sometimes we're just going to play against feral creatures and just lose to a couple of 1/1s after dropping a humility, and that's a thing that is going to happen. I don't know that I have any major suggestions in terms of changes for deck building. I used most of the stuff that was in the sideboard, or at the very least, I would frequently use them in a typical league. This is a slot that I'm a little unsure of after having played the league. It feels like this is just a little slow in a deck that's already slow. I don't know that you can play another Palantir because of like reliance on Ensnaring Bridge for fair matchups. Maybe I drop the Karn for a third main deck Moat and play all 4 in the 75. If you end up playing against Delver or something like that, though, like the Moats aren't reliable and the Ensnaring Bridges are where you have to go, and then like Palantir becomes more awkward because there's still 1/1s like Orcish Bowmasters around. But there's a lot to think about here. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed, and if you end up wanting to pick up any of the cards for this deck, consider checking out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!